Our next guest is the personification of turning obstacles into opportunities. Originally from Melbourne, Australia, Nick Vujicic is a sought-after motivational speaker and has addressed over 5 million people in roughly 60 countries on 6 continents. He speaks at schools, congregations, and corporations. He wows all of his audiences with his rapier wit and boundless energy. He's written several books, starred in an award-winning short film, and has even made it into the Guinness Book of World Records for giving more than 1,700 hugs in just an hour. He's not only accomplished, he's athletic as well, but I suppose one would have to be if they were doing it all without arms and legs. Nick's here. We want to welcome you to Full Frame. What a delight to have you on the broadcast.
My joy. Thanks for having me here.
Okay, so I'm going to state the obvious. No arms, no legs. It happened at birth. It was a complete surprise for your parents. Did they have any indication? Can you tell us what it was all about?
No indication. My mum actually in Australia was a midwife, and she knew all about thalidomide and making sure that she did everything correct on her pregnancy. Firstborn son, 3 ultrasounds, and they were just excited every time they saw me that they forgot to make sure that I had 10 digits on my hands and feet. But when I came out, I said, surprise. And it was a mix of emotions, as you can imagine. Why? What happened? What was the explanation? And they came up with the fact that there is no explanation. My parents don't know why I was born this way. Doctors don't know. And Lady Gaga don't know.
Lady Gaga kind of thinks she knows, though, doesn't she?
But, you know, it's just one of these things that, you know, you have a choice. Either you be angry for what you don't have, or you do the best with what you have and never give up. And so I love my parents very much, and they helped me a lot just to believe in myself and know that I'm beautiful, still the way that I am.
You know, it's really, that's an important point, because your parents really were there for you along the way. They also, you were telling me, went through extraordinary hardships. So they, I think, pinning it to adversity and overcoming adversity, I think perhaps that was a key component, you think?
Huge thing. I mean, my mum and dad, with all the wisdom that they had, they allowed me to try different things and even fail and cry about it, and then forced me to try again. And when I could finally persist and actually achieve one little thing and make little goals and achieve them, my confidence grew. In their wisdom, they also really pushed me in mathematics, because I couldn't be an athletic runner. I couldn't do many things, but I became #1 in mathematics in my class and became a good chess player. And so they really helped me to understand that my value is not determined on being a good chess player or a mathematician, but really just being myself and not worrying about how I look. And I think that's the biggest thing they gave me, love, a home of refuge every time I came home, especially because the bullying got a little too much at times at school.
And the love was critically important, because you've talked about this as a kid, thinking you should end your life. And it was the love of your parents really that turned all of that, right?
Yeah, as I looked ahead in my 8-year-old frame of mind, looking ahead, not thinking I'm ever going to get a job, never going to get married, can't even hold my wife's hand, not going to have children, can't even hold my kids if they're crying, feeling like I was a burden already to my parents, and only seeing bullying ahead in my life. What's the point of living? I had no purpose. And when one has no purpose to live, forget about arms and legs. If you live a life without purpose, you start living a life of strength that fades away. At age 8 to age 12, I was depressed. Age 10, tried to drown myself. And the only reason why I decided to stay was because I didn't want to leave that pain with my parents, because they did nothing but love me, so they didn't deserve that pain. So I decided to stay and let my broken pieces have a chance to transform into something beautiful.
And that certainly has happened. You tell this remarkable, well, let's talk first about the bullying before I get to that. You endured an awful lot, and now you use that as a message. You go and talk to students all the time, and I mean, you see these kids, their faces. I mean, I watched one of your speeches, and they take the cutaways of the students watching, and I know you're making a huge impact, and your message is because kids can be extraordinarily cruel to one another, and it seems as though it really resonates as they listen to your story.
You know, it's not the fact that they understand how it feels to be limbless, but they can relate to my brokenness and my loneliness that I've experienced in my life. Feeling like, well, where is my place in this world? What value do I really have? I wish this was different. I wish that was different. But truly, to relate to everyone, it's not that I've suffered more than them. In fact, I tell teenagers all the time, it's worse being in a broken home than having no arms and legs. And that's why I wrote the book Stand Strong, because you've got to stand strong within yourself, your value, your purpose, your destiny. That's not determined on other people's opinion. When the world says you're not good enough, get a second opinion. And so, you know, with humor and realness and truth, you know, I'm seeing shackles of fear being broken off these kids, that they don't have to look like them. They don't have to say the F word to be cool. They don't have to have the big biceps. I had big biceps, they fell off, all right? They were so big. It's not about the outside, it's who you are on the inside that counts. And so that's what I think the message really resonates within them.
You know, the negative messages that come in life, I mean, the bullies could have been the takeaways for a young kid like
Right.
yourself, but they weren't. I mean, you talk a lot about your parents, the love you had, the family love you had, but another story you tell, which I think is just fantastic, is the janitor who told you should be
Oh,
a speaker.
yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. You know, no matter what negativity was out there in my life, there was always a couple shining stars for me to say, hey, you know, keep going, don't give up. And one of those people was the janitor at my high school, who looked at me one day, and his 61-year-old Indian man, Arnold, and he looked at me one day and he said, Nick, you're going to be a speaker. And I said, Mr. Arnold, you're a crazy old man. And I said, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, what do you think I'm going to share? He said, you're going to share your story. I said, I don't have a story. He said, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. He said, please go talk to the student support group. And I said, no, for 3 months. And he twisted my arm. I said, yes. Got in front of this group of 10 teenagers, started sharing, and I saw someone crying. I said, are you okay? She said, yeah, I was just touched. And I'm like, who touched you? I don't understand. How can hope that is priceless? Hope is everything. How can that be communicated in such a short way that transforms their perspective of even their obstacles? And that's when I knew that hope, you can't take it out of my pocket, put it in yours. You can't buy hope, but hope can be given in the right ways, and it changes people's lives. And so that's when I knew I was born to be a speaker. At age 17, started speaking, and 19, really said to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Talk to me, we've got your books here. What inspired you to start writing? And obviously there are, you say life without limits, but there are limitations for you to write. How do you go about doing it?
Yeah, with my little foot down here, I've got 2 toes, and I type 43 words a minute on a normal computer, and after 2 cups of coffee, 53 words a minute. So I was introduced to a computer when I was 6. And, you know, I was really inspired by putting my story in a book, because right now we have 35,000 invitations for me to speak on file. I've spoken 3,000 times in 57 countries. And I just want this book to, obviously, there's a lot more content in a book than a 1-hour keynote speech. And so I really want to go deeper with any reader who wants to know more about the fundamentals of principles and values and faith that I have that's transformed my life from a life without limbs into a life without limits. And so that's why we write these books. So we've got Life Without Limits, which is an introduction to my life. Stand Strong, which is a book right for teenagers, right where they're at school, and the bullying. And then me and my wife, Kanae, she's half Japanese, half Mexican, Japsican. And we've been married now for 3.5 years. We're not experts in marriage, but we just want everyone to know that you do not have to be a perfect person before you find a perfect love.
You have this extraordinary personality and persona, and there's always a smile on your face, and one would think, geez, you know, he's got so many hardships and stuff. But one of the things I really like about you is you're a pretty good practical joker, and you tell the story about being on the passenger side of a car and somebody pulling up alongside. You have to tell that story before we go, because I was dying listening.
I love it. I love it. So one day I'm in the front seat of a car, and you know, I always share this story, always with the message. So the message is, when you don't see the full picture, it doesn't make sense. So God has a plan for you. You just can't see the whole thing. So check this out. One day I'm in the front seat of the car. We're at the traffic lights. This car comes up next to us, and this girl's looking at me. So I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. I'm looking at her, and all she sees is my head from the side. So just imagine, all you see is my head from the side, and she's looking at me. I just did this. I did a 360-degree spin, in my own chair, and she is like, it was the best. It was the very best. You know, she freaked out, and she only ran through the red light. So I love freaking people out. We dressed me up as a pilot, greeting the passengers as they got on the commercial airline. So we have a lot of pranks. It's been fun.
Do you ever have tough days?
I absolutely do.
Because all I ever see is a smile.
Well, there are times where I have my ups and downs, and I know I'm not perfect, and you can ask my wife if you don't believe me. We all have ups and downs, but that's okay. It's never about going from a valley to a mountain. If anyone comes to you with the keys of success to just go from a valley to a mountain, they're lying, because this life is not about that. This life is about going through the valleys and the mountains with the right attitude and doing everything in faith and love.
We'll leave it there. Great advice. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Really a delight.
Cheers.
We'll be back in just a moment with this week's Full Frame Close-Up.